Welcome to the first Q&A. I'm hoping I'm going to do a lot more of these, but you never know. It depends. I mean, if you like it, give me a shout and let me know. So what I've done, I've gone through a lot of different questions across my social media, and I've condensed them into a few questions. So we'll just see how it goes and go from there. So I'm just gonna jump straight into it basically. First question we've got here is, who are you and what is your job? Fair enough. Yeah, who the hell am I? Well, I'm Joshua Dunlop. I am a concept artist, freelance concept artist. I live in London in the UK. I'm 30 years old. And yeah, my job is a concept artist. Now, if you don't know what a concept artist is, it's basically with films and games and sort of creative things like that. They have artists who design characters, environment, products, props, like you name it. You know, we're the ones who come up with the original ideas and how things will look and whatnot. So like, you know, you might have a script and all it says in it is there's a gnarly looking dragon in there with some yellow spikes, and that's literally it. So we're the ones who will go ahead and draw loads of different designs of dragons, but with different spikes and different shapes of heads and blah blah blah. And yeah, a lot of the time you have a art director who's kind of watching it and checking over what you're doing and says like yes or no, and usually the final design ends up going forward to like the 3D sculptors or the CGI department, and they build it and then it ends up in the film. So if you're lucky enough, you get to actually sit down and go, I made that, which is a really fun thing. As a freelance artist, it's hit and miss really. Like, it depends on how many studios you end up working for, but you know, whatever. And yeah, so that's me basically. What programs do you use and how hard are they to use? You know, I get this asked a lot, like all the time, and you can find it really easily actually on pretty much all of my pages. I say these are the programs I use, but that's okay, it's fine. So the programs I use are Zbrush for 3D modeling, I use Keyshot for materials and lighting, and then finally I put it all together in Photoshop. So yeah, I mean there's another question later that is kind of, I'll expand on that a little bit more. But for now let's move on. So we've got how many Pokemon are you going to make? Well, basically the plan is to do the first 151. That is my goal. I'm not going to do any of the other ones. The reason for that is because I like to have a solid goal to aim and reach. I think if I was going to do more of a mixed match, it just felt like there's never going to end. And you know, it's not just for me, it's for you as well. Like I think a lot of people like this idea that there's like a completion, and if I want to go on to do the next gen after that, then I can. And it, you know, everyone has a favourite in the first 151. So you know, you're going to hopefully, I hope, please everyone. Yeah, but that's basically the reason why. I mean, you know, there's going to be ones here and there and come along. I don't know what I'm going to do when I finish the first 151. I'm saying that now. I'm not saying I'm going to stop doing the Pokemon. I mean, it's unlikely that I would completely stop doing Pokemon, but that's something I need to see what I'm doing at the time. You know, I've done about 60 something so far, I think. I don't know. I haven't counted. But around that. So I've still got loads to do, you know. So there's no end in sight just yet. But yeah. So what's the next question? Will I ever do Alolan forms or Mega Evolutions? So yeah, that ties in with the 150 one. So technically, yes, the Alolan forms and Mega Evolutions are, you could argue, part of the first thing, but I mean for me it's more about the original 151 that released are the ones that I'm going to do, rather than spin-offs and the babies and all that kind of stuff. If I am going to continue, those are probably the ones I'm going to do. If people are going to hate me for this, I'm not a big fan of megas, I'm going to admit. I think their designs are fine. I think they look great. The biggest thing for me is that basically, like, the thing with Pokemon is that it's obviously like a metamorphosis. So like when they evolve, they're turning into they're basically growing up. Do you know what I mean? And I kind of like that. That was like a natural thing, even with the weird ones, like the metallic ones. And I know that there are, you know, ones like Magnemite and stuff like that that aren't technically kind of living creatures, but I always imagine them as kind of like robotic AI kind of thing. So yeah, but you know what? I just think the megas just feel a little bit too much like Digimon to me, and I love Digimon, its own thing, but I like the fact that there was a separation there. The fact that they can go back to their old evolution just kind of bugged me a little bit. Doesn't mean they're not good. Don't attack me. But it just means that I'm not the biggest fan. So I am in no rush to do those. What is your process? Right, okay, so this is going back to the original questions. My process is, I work in Zbrush or Zbrush if you're a stickler and live in England. But Zbrush because most of my fans are from America. So basically what it is that I lost my train of thought then. Right, so I start up in Zbrush. Zbrush is a program that is a 3D modeling program, so it's kind of like digital clay if you think about it like that. So you can kind of like put things in, cut things out, stretch things, move things, blah blah blah. So it's a bit like using clay. And to go back to my original question, I realised I didn't answer this. It is hard. Zbrush is a difficult program to learn. It's fantastic. It's the best in the business. But it is really, it's very, very hard to get your head around, and it took me a while to learn it. And I would say if you're just starting out in 3D or something that you want to go into, check out the sort of sister program called Sculptress, which is kind of like the younger version of Zbrush. It's just simpler and easy to use, and once you kind of get your head around that, it's easier to transition to Zbrush. Or another program that I use when I first started out trying stuff out is called 3D Coat, and that's actually really easy to learn, but it is not as doesn't have as much going on as Zbrush does. So yeah, like those are really good ones. So then I move into a program called Keyshot. Now, Keyshot is like a rendering program. I bought this thing called a Keyshot bridge, which basically means like with a clicker button it takes my entire model from Zbrush into Keyshot. And in Zbrush I'll paint the whole model and I'll do it like that. But in Keyshot I can light it, but I can also play with the materials. So for example, like the skin of a creature or a person or whatever, there's a thing called subsurface scattering. It's basically where light penetrates it. It's kind of like when you hold up your hand to like a light and it goes all pink and you can see through it. It's kind of like that. So yeah, basically I can change materials, I can make them reflective, I can make them darker, I can make them rough, you know, I can do all of this sort of stuff in there and make them look like the material they're supposed to look like. And you can do that in Zbrush. It has that thing. It's just something that I prefer to do in Keyshot. And you also have amazing lighting in there. They have these HDRIs, which is like, it's like lighting but realistic lighting. So you can make it look like it's outside or something like that, which is great for my stuff. But yeah, it's basically, I do all of that in there. I also add in like extra lights because sometimes the natural light's great, but it doesn't always make things pop. And like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm an artist, so I've got to make things look interesting. And you can get some really nice sort of like rim lights and stuff like that. And they're usually the things, strong lights usually are the things that make things look really realistic. which is why I probably had some complaints in the past when I've experimented and done things underwater and stuff like that. You don't get such of like the hard lighting edge on it, so it doesn't look as 3D as people seem to think it. But anyway, that's besides the point. So yeah, I'll do it in there, and then I'll do these things called passes, which is basically like different passes are like, you'll have one that will be for purely shadow, one that will just be for like certain parts of light, ones that will be like a base color, one that will be like the main color altogether. Yeah, and I can do that. I can also get like a thing called like a clown mask, where it's like block color of different parts of the 3D model, and I can kind of use that in Photoshop to select specific parts of the body. It makes it a lot easier. So yeah, so once I've done all of that, I then bring it into Photoshop, and I don't think I feel like I need to explain what Photoshop is, but anyone who's been living under a rock and doesn't know what Photoshop is just a image editing program, and you can use it to draw, you can use it to paint, you can use it to cut and paste photographs, you can do all sorts of stuff in there. But I use it for artwork. And so I bring in all of these layers, and then I can use different I can make it so that you can just have the light and you can just have the shadow, and you can layer it all up, so then you can really tweak the finer details on like how much light you're getting and whatnot, and make it look really interesting. Once I've done that, then I bring in I have this huge reference library where I bought photos like which are royalty free, or I'll go out and take my own photos. My girlfriend tends to get quite annoyed when we're on holiday and I'm ending up taking loads of pictures of like trees and rocks and stuff, and it's, yeah, but it's all part of it, you know, it's all part of it. So yeah, so I do that, and I can bring those images in. Sometimes I use them just for reference, so like when I'm making the model I can use them as a thing, especially with things like rocks and stuff. Or sometimes I'll actually bring the photos in and I'll build the background up using a process called matte painting. Yeah, and I create the environments. I try to create a sense of depth, so I think some of you will notice that sometimes I blur out the background a little bit, and then I'll have something in the foreground which will be darker and blurred out, just so that it kind of gives you that idea that there's some depth in the image. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. You can check out some of my time-lapse videos or tutorials on my YouTube channel. I do plan to do more tutorials in the future, but it's when I have time. Really, it's quite time-consuming. So yeah, so let's move on to the next question. What is your favourite and most favourite and most disliked Pokemon? It's tough, isn't it, really? I would say my favourite would be Raichu. Mainly because I think it's a really good design. I think it looks really cool, I think it's really interesting. It's more powerful than Pikachu. And it's always been under Pikachu's shadow. And it kind of gets forgotten a bit, and I feel sorry for it. But it makes me love it more, you know. And I've guaranteed nearly every single Pokemon game I've played I've had a Raichu. But my worst is, well, God, I don't know. I don't know, you know. I mean, like, I'm not the biggest fan of the new ones. I mean, people complain about a lot of the new designs. And, you know, I could argue that there was, in the original 150, there are a few that don't have amazing designs and are a little bit strange anyway. So that, you know, that's kind of null and void. But I definitely prefer Pokemon that are more natural, like more like animals. I still love like Magnemite and Voltorb and stuff like that. That's fine, but when it starts being like a bag of rubbish or a set of keys, it kind of loses its appeal to me. I don't think I have one I hate over the others, so I'm not going to say particularly. I remember I wasn't a fan of Trubbish, if that's it. That's a Trubbish? Yeah, I think it's Trubbish. Yeah, wasn't a fan. But anyway, that's that. And out of the Pokemon you've done so far, which is your favourite and which one are you most looking forward to create? My favourite would be Bulbasaur, the first one I ever did. That's because it was, not only because I still think to this day it's a really good image and I'm really happy with it, but I would say it's because it was the first image that proved to me that I could do it. You know, I could create these images. So yeah, I've always had a soft spot for it because it's kind of, I remember the first day I finished it and I was just so proud of it. And it made me think, like, you know, this could be the new direction for me, and it was. So yeah, I've always loved that. And the one that I most look forward to creating, I think it's Lapras. Lapras is like my second favourite Pokemon, I think, next to Ninetales. And I just think I've always thought they're really majestic Pokemon, and I think that will be a really fun image to do. Hopefully I'll do it justice. But and it also plays to my strengths. You know, sorry. But, you know, as any artist will tell you, when you're in your comfort zone, you enjoy it a lot more. How long does each Pokemon take to make? Now, it depends. I mean, like when I first started, it was taking like 2 weeks to make each picture, but now I'm down to between 3 and 4 days is probably where I'm at, to get it where I really want it to be. The modelling takes up the most of the time, quite frankly. So, you know, when I get people commenting to me, and I'm not against constructive criticism if it's constructive. People cut you. There is a misconception of, if someone says this isn't as good as your other ones, do it better. That isn't constructive criticism. That's not constructive. That's rude. Just not helpful, basically. Constructive is when someone can say, oh, when the light here doesn't quite work, or the texture here could use this, this and this, maybe the colour could be bumped up here, something like that, you know, something a little bit more specific. But yeah, no, sorry, how long did it take to make? So for me, if I've done the model, I'm not going to change the model, quite frankly. It takes too long. So if you have a complaint about the model, don't expect me to change it. But if I've done something, so for example, I did a redo of my Kingler picture, because sometimes I like to experiment. You know, I like to try and push, like see what something looks like and do something new. For me, you know, I have to keep things interesting and I have to keep pushing myself and learning and stuff. So with the Kingler picture, I wanted to do it in like a kind of a misty beach setting, kind of like a volcanic beach. But when it's like that, it doesn't mean that there's any harsh light. And as I said before, there's a lot of the stuff that looks really 3D is when it's got harsh light on it. So remember that. But I can't do all of them with harsh light, because then they're all kind of look similar across the boards, and I don't want that, you know. And as an artist, I like to try different things. So yeah, so I changed that because people were, and I understood their point. You know, people said, "Oh, you know, it feels a bit matte. I think it's kind of, you lose some of the details and stuff like that." And I was like, okay, yeah, no, I kind of understand where you're coming from, and I'll listen. So, you know, I value my fans, and I listen to my fans. Doesn't mean I'm going to change every single one. I'm just saying that. But yeah, so basically I went ahead and I did one that was more in the sunshine on a beach, and People seem to like it. But I will change it then, because there's no... all I have to do is like relight it and re-render it and then put it together in Photoshop. So it's not too much of a task. But yeah, on average 3 to 4 days. So could you make a movie or animate your models? Short answer is no. Quite frankly, I'm not an animator, and people get very confused about that. I use 3D models, and again, this is another thing as well. People get confused. So I'm a concept artist. That's it. I'm a concept artist. I'm not a 3D modeler. I don't UV all my models. I don't make them ready to go in a game or into a thing. I don't know it. I don't know about that sort of stuff, and I'm not really interested in leaning into that kind of that world. I use 3D modeling as a tool for my artwork. You know, so I'll put this all together, but I don't know how to rig anything. I don't know how to make it move. There's a very big difference there. That's an incredible skill, people who can animate things. Even just rigging things is an art in itself. This is why feature films have like so many departments. That's why the credits at the end are so long. It's because each part of a film or part of a process is, you know, requires someone who has that skill. So that that being said, if a talented animation team came to me and said that they wanted to model some of my models, then I'd definitely give it a go. I would be open to that. Emphasis on talented though, because I want the, you know, if I'm gonna put an animation out there, I want it to look the highest possible quality it can. I don't want something half-assed, you know, that's no disrespect to any animators out there who try it, and it doesn't mean that you're not good at what it is, but I have a quality in my head, and that's basically, I won't settle for any less than that. I'm sorry. And will I ever make a film? No. Films cost 300 million to make and more now. I don't have that money. I'm not going to be able to get that money. I don't own the rights to Pokemon. If I tried doing that, I'd get sued in 5 seconds. As you know, my artwork, I mean, this isn't a question, but just to kind of clarify, some people kind of wonder why Pokemon haven't been upset about the fact that I draw Pokemon. And the simple fact is that, you know, an artist actually, there are protections in law that protect artists from their stuff, which is why fan art is such a big thing, and why not every, like, Comic-Cons just wouldn't exist without fan art, basically. And if everyone got sued for doing that. But the point is that you know, I have talked to people in Pokemon and in the industry and stuff like that, and it's basically, I'm simply just not making anywhere near enough money out of it. I make a little tiny bit on the side to help pay my rent, and actually one of the only reasons why the actual project is still going is because, you know, I use the money I make, or the support I get, sorry, from like Patreon and from Etsy selling posters and stuff, is a job in itself. That's how I can justify doing the Pokemon Zoology, because I can not take on, if I'm making money out of that, I can spend more time on it because I don't have to take on more freelance jobs. The less money I make out of that, the more freelance jobs I have to take on in terms of paying my rent and my bills. It's just quite simple. But yeah, no, I don't make enough money to bother them. I am not using. I'm using the inspiration of their work to create stuff, but my designs are so far removed from the originals in some respects that that it's not a problem. I don't know what will happen in the future. My hope is that I'll at least be able to get to finish the 151. But yeah, you know, it's just part and parcel of it. What are your plans for the future? Will you make a book? I guess this kind of ties into the last question. Plans for the future is I'm planning on making a website first. I'm actually looking to do a Kickstarter for it later on this year. I'm in talks with some companies about creating the site and doing all of that. The site itself is going to be a hub for everything. I'm still going to post on all of my social media. It's not going to stop, but it will all refer back to this website, and the website will be kind of like a National Geographic in some respects. So everything about my work is to kind of give the illusion that this is a real place or a real world, including like some of the extra stuff that I sell on my Etsy store, like the tickets and the leaflet of the safari zone that has the map in it and all that sort of stuff. So it's all designed to feel like a real world place, and you know, I want there to, I'm going to do, you know, on the website, sorry, is going to be stuff about their biology, their habitat, their diet, their environment, everything. You know, it's going to have this kind of information on there. I'm also going to do some extra artwork to go with it, probably like hand-drawn stuff, just to kind of flesh it out a little bit. But that's the plan, to do that, and then I'll also probably sell some work on that, sell posters and stuff on that website, maybe even move away from Etsy, I don't know yet. So I'll do that. I may, if I can, do an accompanying, oh, I can't even say it. An accompanying, is that it? Accompanying app. I'm going to be doing an app to go with it, possibly, if I can. And yes, so I'm going to do that. And then eventually, once I've done 151, then I'm going to do a book or a set of books. Self-publish, of course. And that will have all of my artwork in it, and probably a condensed version of what will be on the website. So hopefully, you know, you guys will like that. And yeah, I mean, like with the Kickstarter and the website, I am very much open to working with lots of different people. So if you're like a zoologist, a biologist, a botanist, just a writer, even if you have any other like interesting talents, like a sound engineer or something like that, and you want to get involved in the project, then I'm very up for doing that, because I don't want to, you know, this is a fun project for me, but it's a huge project, you know. So I'm gonna do this, and bear in mind, you know, the website is not going to be completely canon, because I'm going to be bringing in real biology and whatnot in a fantasy setting. Things you know, I don't want loads of people messaging me going, it's not like that in the Pokedex. I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna. The Pokedex is fun for a game, but it doesn't make sense in a real world scenario. You know, it just scientifically doesn't work. So I am going to be changing a lot of the stuff. But I'll always make sure that people know that I've changed it, and that kind of stuff. And obviously anyone that I'll be working on, I'll be giving credit on the website and making sure that everyone knows that what they've done, their contribution to it, so it doesn't all look like I have done this amazing thing. You know. Anyway, moving on. So what did you want to be when you were younger? I mean, that's a lovely question. I think I was like any kid. There was a lot of things I wanted to do. I think more specifically, I originally wanted to be a wildlife photographer. I thought that was a really fun job. The idea of being able to travel the world and take pictures of animals and do that sort of stuff. And I love photography as well. When I was young, I'm talking when I was young. I love artwork. I've been an artist since I was, God, I can't even remember. Like my mum would tell you that I used to like take up the living room, spread paper all over the floor, watching Jurassic Park, sketching dinosaurs. So I've always done that. I don't think I actually thought about wanting to be a professional artist until quite later on in my life. I actually went originally into acting and writing, so that's what I was doing before I became a professional artist. I was working in the film industry. I studied acting, and I did a bit of acting, and got to work on some feature films in front and behind the camera. So yeah, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was only later on that I decided, actually, I want a career change. I want to go in a different direction. I want to be the one that creates the designs for the films that I'm working on, rather than just being the one filming them. So I did that. You know, I ended up going off and doing my masters in concept art, and then becoming a professional artist. I will go into more detail, and there's another question later on where I can expand on that. What are you planning on doing? Oh, are you planning on doing any other franchises? Short answer, no. I will do stuff. I'll do commissions. I'm very happy to do commissions. Did some stuff for Red Bull. Did some fantastic work with Red Bull. Doing Dota 2, League of Legends, Mario, the Mario characters. Yeah, I'm very happy to do that, but quite frankly, I have Pokemon to deal with. I have professional work that I'm doing, and then also I want to build my own franchise and my own IP, which I'm currently starting. I'm not going to give any details about it. I think I've got a lot of things that I need to work out before I really like flesh that out. But you know, I've started posting it, so you can see, like, for example, my Moth Wraith is on there, or the Black Damp Fae, also known as the Coal Pixie, is on there. So yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff coming. But I think if I started doing other franchises, it would get a bit messy. Like, and also, like, you know, so say I did a character from One Piece or Dragon Ball Z, I would do that, and then everyone will go, "Where's the other characters?" And I'd be like, "I don't want to do the other characters. Like, come on, I did this." But so for me, it's something that I kind of want to steer away from, just because I'm busy enough. Do you know what I mean? Rather than adding a load of stuff. So yeah. What is the best and worst thing about being a concept artist? Best thing is you can make your own hours, or being a freelance artist. That's anyway. This is my experience. As a freelance artist, you can make your own hours. You can have a holiday whenever you want. You get to be a bit more choosy on the sort of work that you work on, and more particular. But and you know, obviously the the end result, seeing like if you're lucky enough to get one of your final designs go into a final piece, whether it's a film or a game, that's always incredibly satisfying. And you get to kind of go, I made that, that's me. But the worst thing I would say, especially as a freelance artist, is well, loneliness in some respects. You know, I work from home. So I occasionally go and work in a studio, and that's fantastic. I love doing that. But working at home, it gets a bit lonely. You don't always, like, for example, with the Pokemon stuff, I can turn to my artist friends, professional artists, and say, you know, what can be tweaked here? What's wrong here? Because you do get a bit of artist blindness if you've been working on a project for long enough. You can't see the mistakes; it all just kind of blends into one, and you know there's something wrong, but you can't see it. So it helps having that. But you know, if you're working on something that's under a non-disclosure agreement, you can't do that. You can't send the artwork to somebody else, and it's just on you to make sure that that works. And there's a lot of pressure there, and also it's, you know, it's frustrating. But when you're working in a studio, you can turn to the person next to you and say, you know, what's wrong with this? What's going on? And vice versa. You know, they can do the same thing. I mean, the downside of working in a studio obviously is that you don't get a choice in what you work on. So you may get like someone turn up and go, could you design this awesome dragon? And you'd be like, yes, of course I can. But then they might come and go, could you design this chair? And you're like, oh, okay. And you're like, yeah, that's what you're doing for a month. So yeah, so there's ups and downs. So what was the first thing that made you want to be a professional concept artist? There wasn't one thing that made me want to be a professional concept artist. I was obviously, as I said, I was working in the film industry, loving it, really enjoyed the people and stuff. It's very fast paced, it's very long hours, it's hard work, and I'm not saying that it isn't working as a concept artist. There's very tight deadlines and stuff there as well, but it was draining me, and I thought to myself, I don't really, as I said before, I want to be designing these things. I also made some really good friends around that sort of time who were artists, and you know, they inspired me and got me excited about the idea of being a professional again. I basically became a professional artist for about a year before I went on and did my masters, and it wasn't amazing. I wasn't getting a huge amount of work and whatnot, and you know, you have to understand that there is an element of luck as well as talent that goes into finding work in this industry. But I went and did my masters, and I'll just say now, I didn't learn the talents that I didn't learn the techniques that I use in my artwork now at my masters. I'm primarily self-taught in that respect, but it did give me a solid year of focusing on artwork and basically experimenting and also kind of looking at more things like colour and going back to basics and composition, stuff like that, you know. And I think that's really important, taking that time for yourself. And yes, so I mean, obviously, anyway, so the point is that I felt like I needed a change. You know, at the same time as working in the film industry, I was also working in bars and restaurants and stuff like that. You know, it's always up and down. It's always a bit crazy. So for me, I was just like, I need something new. I came out of my masters with the kind of naivety, and I'll say this to all of you: don't expect to get a job straight out of your masters. It's not going to happen. If you do, like, oh my god, well done. But the likelihood is limiting. For the year after my masters, I didn't get any work at all. And it was actually one of the biggest things that I'll say is, you know, push for, like, do your own thing. Like, don't expect it to land in your lap. Do things, go out there, network, create projects, keep doing things, and one day someone will notice you. Because the last thing that you need is, you know, you're not going to get work with people just looking at your stuff and going, oh, is this 3 years old that was in your masters? Haven't you not done anything? It's like, no, I haven't done any work. It's like, it doesn't matter. You should be working. You should still be doing stuff. So yeah, so there wasn't one thing that made me want to be a concept artist, but I think it was probably a combination of a lot of different things. And also, like, you know, my inner child saying to me, like, why aren't you an artist? Like, why haven't you done this? So yeah, so that's what I did. What's the next one? What advice would you have for upcoming artists? Well, I pretty much just said it, haven't I, really? but I would also say keep learning, watch tutorials, keep practicing, try and do like one bit of art a day, even if it's only for like half an hour or 10 minutes. Just do something. Break out of your comfort zone and try new things. However, still refine one thing that you really love. It's all well and good being moderately okay at everything, but it's better to be really good at one thing and then moderately okay at the other things, if that makes sense. Or terrible at something. Like if someone comes to me and says, "Could you design me a car?" I'm like, no, like not at all. I wouldn't even know where to start. And I still struggle with people sometimes. Like which is why you don't see me do many. Because it's one of those things. It's like people, horses, and dogs are one of the kind of fall into that category of like, if there's something weird or slightly off, people will notice straight away, because you see it every day. You know, it's something that is ingrained in your brain, and you know that it works in that respect. So yeah, keep doing that, and don't give up. It's really easy to want to give up. You know, I don't boast about it, but I'm very much an advocate for speaking about mental health and being open about it. And you know, I had bad depression a couple of years ago. Well, actually, I say a couple of years ago. Like throughout my life, I've been up and down, and it's through fantastic people that I surround myself with that I keep going. But you know, it's easy in those dark times to want to give up. Because it's hard, or you're not getting where you want to be right away. But that you know, you can't let that win, and you just have to keep going at it, and you have to keep practicing and stuff like that. You know, you have to, and I say this to a lot of people about a lot of things, life in general, is I think we're a culture that is so obsessed with looking forward and what we don't have to appreciate where we are now and how far we've come from like a year ago. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you know, where I'm at now, I look back at a year ago and I've achieved what I wanted. And instead of going, I'm not where I want to be, I still have goals. Don't get me wrong, I still have goals, but I allow myself to appreciate where I'm at. You know? And I think that's something you have to do, and you shouldn't just beat yourself up and just say you're terrible, or look at that person, look how fantastic they are. They've worked years to get where they are. They were at exactly the same point where you are now. Like, so you will get there. You just have to work hard at it. And not everyone started at the same time as you. So, you know, someone who is young, you know, I have friends who are younger than me and they're so much more talented than me, and they work on some feature films and stuff like that, and there is a small jealousy about it, but they started to be an artist or wanted to be a concept artist from when they were very young. They didn't go the long way around like I did. So, you know, you have to understand that, and you shouldn't beat yourself up. So yeah, so that's my overall advice on that one. So, what training did you have, and how long have you been doing Pokemon Zoology? Well, as I said, I didn't get any of the... I'm self-trained primarily. The Masters was fantastic, as I said. I got to spend some real time looking at things that I was probably rough at. But the 3D modelling and stuff was something that I did myself. But I would say I've been training all my life. I know that's cliche, but, you know, I think you should always constantly be training yourself. And actually the Pokemon Zoology, to answer that, I've been doing it for about 2 years, but it has been a project that challenges me all the time. and makes me do things that I'm not comfortable with or haven't done before, like bird's feathers. I'd never done bird's feathers before, and you know, I still have a long way to go in terms of getting them right and looking good. Again, another reason why I haven't done the legendary birds yet. But yeah, it's yeah. I just say, like, just keep at it and yeah, and challenge yourself and train, keep training. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to go to do it. Anyway, what made you want to start Pokemon Zoology? Well, you know, it wasn't. I didn't actually plan to start it. It wasn't like something that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this entire project. It was, my friends had encouraged me to start doing things in 3D. So as I said, I sat down and I think I spent like a solid 2 weeks just bashing out things on Zbrush. And then I decided I wanted to figure out a project that I want to do to kind of culminate my new skills, I guess you could call them. And Pokemon Go was really big. And I've always been a Pokemon fan. I actually did some like artwork really far back in the day, trying to do like a website thing. Again, realistic Pokemon, it kind of comes back on itself. But I'd forgotten about it for such a long time. And then I thought, hey, that would be something fun to revive, doing realistic Pokemon. So yeah, I did that, and my friend saw it and they said, yeah, this is really good. I was like, okay. I mean, I like it, but thank you. And they're like, put it on a site called Imgur. I'd never heard of it before. But I was like, okay, so I put it on there. And I mean, it's on my social media and stuff. But then, yeah, it took off. It was pretty crazy. Like, he called me up in the morning and was just like, it's got like 400,000 views. I was like, what? And then I just started getting like interviews from people, like from companies and from websites, and I had loads of people like saying like, when's the next one coming out? And I was like, I wasn't planning on doing the next one. And yeah, it just kind of came down to it, and I just went, you know what, this people are loving this so much, I might as well continue and keep going. And actually, I've built the most fantastic fan base, and thank you all so much. Like, genuinely, thank you so much. I'm genuinely honoured to have so many people love my stuff and support me, and it really means a lot. It really means the world. And that's why I continue doing it. And I'm, you know, as I said, I have plans to do more in the future. So yeah, yeah. Oh, can you please give me a shout out on your page? This is something that I get a lot, and it's the answer is no. Basically, if I gave one person a shout out, I'd have to give everyone a shout out, and it's not going to happen. It will clog up my account. Doesn't mean that I don't wish you all the best. It doesn't mean I'm trying to be rude. It doesn't mean that I'm like self-important or anything like that. I'm really not. It's just people come to my social media to see my artwork. They're not there to see loads of shout outs and loads of things like that. It's again another reason why I don't take like plugs and stuff from companies. I've had a lot. You know, some including my nearest and dearest have gone like, you know, these companies are offering you money to like plug it. I'm like, yeah, they want me to plug like a drinks bottle. They're like, so do it. I'm like, no, that's completely like, my fans don't want to see that. That's not interesting. I mean, maybe in the future, if I do some stuff and it is related to my work, then I might do some plugs. But other than that, like, no, it's not. You know, I'm not going to plug a gym, like it. And I've had that. I've had people message me and say like, hey, I'll pay you and you can shout out my gym. I'm like, why? Anyway, so yeah, please don't ask for shout outs. It's not going to happen. And don't get angry when I say no, even though a lot of people do. So, what are your inspirations? My inspirations are nature, mainly, and genuinely there's some amazing stuff out there. I think people have this conception of nature and they're like, I've seen everything in nature. You have not. I literally did a search about, it was insects, beetles actually, in fact, the other day, and there are so many weird and wonderful things, like things covered in hair, things that are like spikes everywhere, things that are super poisonous. Honestly, it is amazing. Plants out there, like there's some really interesting plants that have inspired me for creatures, and you'll never stop getting inspired by nature. I am inspired by films, obviously, books, games, music is a big one. I have a big playlist for what they called soundtracks from films. So I just listen to all of this, and because they kind of have a story to them, a lot of these soundtracks are designed to have a story to them, that it allows me to create new things. And I would say one of the main things is that if you have a book of ideas, if you have literally just a flash of something, write it down, because you will be really surprised what you come back to, and what will relate to something that you're doing in the future. So yeah, do that. I am inspired by loads of different artists. I couldn't name all of them because, you know, they're all so fantastic, and a lot of them are my friends, and I'm very blessed for that fact. Or at least I know them in a capacity. But yeah, I would say the one artist that made me first start drawing when I was 5 or 6 or something like that was an artist called James Gurney, and he wrote this series of books called Dinotopia, about dinosaurs and people living together on this island in like the Victorian period. Beautiful books. If you haven't seen them, check them out. They are gorgeous. I mean, there was like a TV series of it at one point. It doesn't do justice, anywhere near justice. The paintings are gorgeous, so realistic. Just check them out. You really need to. But that was, you know, as a kid, that inspired me insanely. So yeah, and will you do more Legendaries? Quite frankly, I think I've covered this really, haven't I? The birds I'm going to save for a later date until I think I can do them justice. I might redo Mew and Mewtwo. I have done them, but I did them for Red Bull. So I may do them again a little bit closer so you can see a little bit more detail. But I'm only doing 150. So please stop asking me to do other ones, because it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do it. Like my brother actually suggested to me, is like, do you know what you should do? Is put a pound in a pot every time someone asks you, you know, ask you to do a Pokemon that is outside of the 150. And I was like, I would be broke. Well, I wouldn't be broke. All of my money would be in a pot, and I wouldn't be able to pay my bills. So yeah. Anyway, so I've yammered on for a really, really long time. I really enjoyed I enjoyed doing these, and I like talking to you guys on a one-to-one basis. So do, you know, give me a shout out if you like this, and tell me if you want me to do more, and we can maybe turn this into like a thing. I don't know. But yeah, so thank you very much. So I'm gonna put well, if I remember, I'm gonna put a link in there that will have links to all of my social media and stuff. Actually, one thing I missed a question. Sorry. One thing that I will say. It says here, how can I support Pokemon Zoology? And it's actually a very important question. I have my Patreon account, which is kind of like, if you don't know what Patreon is, you become a patron. So it's basically like Kickstarter in terms of like a funding thing, but it's like an ongoing thing. So you pay a small amount each month per creation that you will get rewards for. So, you know, you'll get some behind the scenes stuff that I do. So, you know, sketches, mood boards, videos of time lapses of me making my stuff. You can get, if you go for the higher ones, you get prints that I send you, all signed of course. Yeah, and or you can go to my Etsy store and you can buy posters and some really cool extra stuff like Pokemon certificates, acceptance letters to the league, tickets to the Safari Zone, and like leaflets and stuff like that. So there's a lot of sort of fun stuff on there, but all of that like helps support the project. And as I said, the more funding I get, or the more support I get in those areas, the more time I can spend on Pokemon Zoology. Without that, I have to take more jobs to pay the bills, and you're going to be getting less Pokemon basically. So yeah, so please help me out. Obviously I will be doing the Kickstarter for the website later on this year, so keep an eye out for that. So that would be amazing if you could support me on there. Yeah, thank you very much for listening to me. If you listen to the end, like, wow, thank you. So yeah, I hopefully will talk to you guys soon. Thanks, bye.